They wanted to boil the alien girl to absorb her energy. But she begged me, reaches its crescendo, when Jax confronts the parasitic false queen in the Crystal Palace. As his powers falter, Lyra emerges with her family pendant. Their artifacts unite in a blinding explosion of gold and silver energy, purging the parasite and revealing the truth. Together, they've awakened something ancient across the stars. The twin sons of Karvas III beat down mercilessly on the crumbling amphitheater. Ancient stone, worn by centuries of sand and wind, still retained the geometric patterns of a civilization long gone. Heat waves distorted the air above the circular arena, where hundreds of spectators roared with anticipation. Jax Rourke lounged in the shadows of the upper tier, one boot propped against a cracked column. His leather jacket, despite the oppressive heat, remained firmly buttoned to his neck, concealing the metallic gleam at his left wrist. He observed the proceedings below with feigned disinterest, though his eyes, sharp and calculating, missed nothing. "Pointless ritual," he muttered, adjusting the settings on his gauntlet beneath his sleeve. The device pulsed softly against his skin, a comforting presence. "Yet you're still here," came the crisp reply from the gauntlet's AI. "Statistically improbable for someone claiming disinterest." Jax grunted. "Market research. Need to know what passes for entertainment in this wasteland if we're going to find work. Observing alien sacrifices qualifies as market research now? Fascinating career pivot." "Not sacrifices," Jax corrected, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "Spa treatments, allegedly." Below, robed figures circled a great cauldron filled with bubbling liquid that glowed an unnatural blue. Steam rose in geometric patterns that seemed almost sentient, curling into runes before dissolving. The priests chanted in a language that made Jax's teeth ache, their voices building to a crescendo as they parted to reveal their centerpiece. A woman, no, not human, was led forward in chains of glittering black metal. Her skin was a deep violet, marked with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in distress. Her four-fingered hands were bound before her, and her eyes, entirely silver with no visible pupils, darted desperately around the arena. Something in Jax's chest tightened. The gauntlet at his wrist suddenly hummed, its temperature dropping noticeably against his skin. "Interesting," the AI noted. "Your pulse just accelerated by 23%. "Shut it," Jax hissed, leaning forward. "What species is she?" "Orion, healer caste, based on epidermal luminescence patterns. Extremely rare off-world. Worth approximately—" "I didn't ask for her market value," Jax snapped, watching as the priests forced the Orion to her knees before the cauldron. One priest, taller than the rest, with a mask fashioned from what looked suspiciously like polished bone, stepped forward. "The cosmic wheel turns," he proclaimed in accented standard. "The dust of dead stars flows through our veins, waiting to be awakened. Today we harvest the essence of the healer kind to fuel our ascension." The crowd roared its approval. Jax's fingers tightened around the edge of the stone bench. "So," he said quietly, "not a spa treatment." "Indeed," the AI agreed. "More accurately categorized as ritual execution for energy extraction. The liquid appears to be a catalyst designed to separate consciousness from biological essence. Quite painful based on historical—" "Betting odds?" Jax interrupted, already on his feet. A moment's pause. "On what specifically?" "On me getting us both out alive if I intervene." Another pause. Longer this time. "Calculating variables. 17% probability of successful extraction, without major injury. 3% without any injury. 0.4% without detection." Jax grinned, the expression more feral than amused. "I like those odds." "You consistently misinterpret statistical improbability as favorable. This is why your life expectancy is—" But Jax was already moving. With practiced ease, he vaulted over the railing, dropping 20 feet to land in a crouch that sent sand billowing around him. The impact should have shattered his legs, but the gauntlet pulsed, a barely visible ripple of energy absorbing the force. The crowd fell silent. The priests froze, the tall one still holding the Orient woman by her chains. "Sorry to interrupt," Jax called, straightening to his full height and adopting his most disarming smile. "Just wanted to clarify something about your ceremony here." The bone-masked priest tilted his head. "The ritual is sacred. Outsiders may observe, but not interfere." "Absolutely," Jax agreed, taking a casual step forward. "Total respect for local customs. Just wondering, that blue stuff she's about to take a dip in, fatal, right? Not, say, a rejuvenating mineral bath with minor discomfort?" The priest's laugh was a dry rattle. "It harvests the quantum signature of consciousness, transferring bioenergetic patterns into pure power. The flesh dissolves within moments. The spirit lingers in torment for eternity, feeding our machines." "Right," Jax nodded thoughtfully. "So definitely not a spa treatment, then." The Orient woman's silver eyes locked onto Jax. Her lips didn't move, but somehow, her voice whispered directly into his mind. "Help me. I called to you." Jax's gauntlet sparked, the metal suddenly burning against his skin. He hissed, flexing his fingers as the familiar sensation of energy, wild, untamed, began building in his palm. "Last chance," he called to the priest. "Release the lady, and I'll be on my way. Keep this up, and things get messy." The bone-masked priest raised a hand. Immediately, a dozen guards materialized from the shadows, each carrying weapons that hummed with the same eerie blue energy as the cauldron. "Seize the blasphemer," the priest commanded. "His essence will join the harvest." "Numbers updated," the AI noted calmly. "Probability of survival now at 8%. Jack sighed, unbuttoning his jacket with deliberate slowness. Always with the essence harvesting. No one ever just wants credits. He shrugged off the garment, revealing the full gauntlet that encased his left arm from fingertips to elbow, a marvel of metal and light, ancient symbols etched into its surface pulsing with golden energy. A murmur ran through the crowd. The priest took an involuntary step back, dragging the Orient with him. "The Pulse Dancer," he whispered, the title carrying easily in the sudden silence. "The ghost of 1,000 battlefields." "I prefer Jax," he replied, flexing his gauntlet-covered hand. The metal rippled like liquid, reconfiguring itself around his fingers. "Now, one more time, release her." Instead, the priest yanked the Orient toward the cauldron with surprising strength. The guards charged forward, energy weapons raised. Jax exhaled slowly, centering himself. "Pulse," he whispered to his gauntlet. "Let's dance." The world slowed, or rather, Jax accelerated, the gauntlet feeding energy directly into his nervous system. The first guard reached him, weapons swinging in what seemed like slow motion. Jax stepped inside the attack, his gauntleted hand touching the guard's chest, with just the fingertips. "Pulse 1, gravity shift," he murmured. Golden energy spiraled from his fingers, sinking into the guard's armor. Suddenly, the man shot 20 feet straight up, screaming as his personal gravitational field inverted. Jax was already moving to the next attacker, flowing like water between wild energy blasts that sizzled past him. "Your technique has improved," the AI noted, as Jax spun between two guards, causing them to shoot each other with perfect timing. "Less commentary, more power regulation." Jax grunted, his non-gauntleted hand drawing a blade from his boot, a simple, steel weapon that seemed almost primitive compared to the energy beams cutting through the air around him. 3 more guards fell, their armor crumpling at strategic points where Jax's blade found gaps. He never killed when disabling would suffice, a code left over from wars he preferred not to remember. The gauntlet pulsed again, warning him of danger from behind. Jax dropped flat as an energy beam passed overhead, then rolled to his feet in one fluid motion. The arena floor was chaos now, Spectators screaming, guards shouting contradictory orders, the priest dragging the struggling Orion ever closer to the cauldron. "Time to end this," Jax muttered, sprinting toward the central platform. A guard stepped into his path, but Jax didn't slow. Instead, he extended his gauntlet, palm out. "Pulse 2, time stutter." The guard froze in place, caught in a bubble of distorted time. Jax slid underneath the suspended figure, emerging on the other side without breaking stride. He could maintain the stutter for only seconds before the energy drain would become dangerous. The bone-masked priest saw him coming. With a snarl, he shoved the Orion woman toward the cauldron, her body teetering on the edge above the bubbling blue liquid. Jax leapt, the gauntlet flaring golden as he channeled every ounce of its power into speed. The world around him reduced to a blur. He caught the Orion around the waist, twisting in mid-air to land on the opposite side of the cauldron, his boots skidding in the sand. The priest howled in rage, drawing a ceremonial dagger that blazed with the same energy as the cauldron. "Defiler! The sacred harvest cannot be denied!" Jax set the Orion woman down gently, keeping himself between her and the priest. "Stay behind me," he told her, readying his gauntlet for another pulse. But the woman surprised him. Though still bound, she stepped to his side rather than behind him. "Together," she said, her voice musical despite the strain. "My mind, your strength." Before Jax could respond, the priest lunged, dagger slicing toward his throat with impossible speed. Jax barely managed to deflect with his gauntleted arm, the contact sending sparks of conflicting energy into the air. The priest was stronger than his robed appearance suggested, driving Jax back a step. "His power comes from the dagger," the Orion whispered urgently. "It contains the essence of my kin." Understanding flashed through Jax. With his free hand, he grabbed the chain binding the Orion's wrists and channeled a micropulse through the metal. The links shattered, falling away. The priest attacked again, but this time, Jax was ready. As the dagger descended, he caught the priest's wrist with his normal hand, while simultaneously touching his gauntlet to the bone mask. "Pulse 3, flesh burn," he growled. The mask shattered, revealing a face that was barely human, skin stretched too tight over jutting bones, eyes sunken and glowing with the same blue energy as the cauldron. The priest screamed as golden energy crawled across his face like living fire, not burning the flesh but severing the connection between the parasite energy and its host. The priest collapsed, the dagger falling from nerveless fingers. The Orion woman quickly kicked it into the cauldron, where it dissolved with a shriek that sounded almost alive. "We need to move," Jax said, grabbing her hand. "More guards will come." The woman nodded, her silver eyes scanning the arena. "There," she pointed to a maintenance tunnel partially hidden behind a fallen column. "That leads to the old aqueduct system." Jax raised an eyebrow. "You seem to know a lot about this place for a prisoner." She gave him a look that somehow managed to be both grateful and imperious. "I studied the plans while they transported me. I'm Lyra, by the way, third daughter of the 8th House of Aurea. Jax Rourke, former soldier, current problem solver." He glanced at the fallen priest, then at the crowd, which was now being held back by the remaining guards. "Let's solve this particular problem by getting out of here." Together, they sprinted for the tunnel, Jax's gauntlet glowing softly to light their way once they plunged into darkness. Behind them, alarms began to sound across the amphitheater. "Perimeter breach protocols activated," the AI informed them. "Orbital sensors will be redirected to this sector within 3 minutes." "Then we need to be underground in 2, Jax replied, following Lyra through the narrow passage. The stonework here was ancient, predating even the amphitheater above. Water dripped from the ceiling, forming small pools on the uneven floor. "How did you know I would help you?" Jax asked, as they navigated the darkness. Lyra's bioluminescent markings provided a soft violet glow that complemented the golden light from his gauntlet. I didn't, she admitted. But I sensed your artifact from my cell. It resonates with the same frequency as my family's pendant, the one they stole when they sold me to the priests. Jax nearly stumbled. Sold you? Your own family? Her face hardened. The current Queen of Aurea is not what she seems. Something has changed her. She's been selling members of the royal bloodline to energy harvesters across 3 systems. Lyra touched a marking on her neck that Jax had mistaken for a natural pattern. I was to be the 17th sacrifice. The tunnel widened, opening into what had once been a magnificent underground chamber. Fallen columns and broken statues lay half submerged in stagnant water. Lyra moved confidently through the ruins, following some path only she could see. Up here, she said, pointing to a narrow shaft of light above them. This ventilation shaft leads to the surface, away from the main complex. Jax eyed the crumbling handholds dubiously. You first. I'll catch you if you fall. Lyra gave him a look that suggested catching her would be unnecessary, then began to climb with surprising agility. Jax followed, his gauntlet occasionally pulsing to stabilize loose stones. Your artifact, Lyra said as they climbed. The locals called you Pulse Dancer. Is that what you do? Dance with energy? Jax grunted, focusing on a particularly treacherous handhold. It's what some people call the combat style. The gauntlet channels quantum energy into specific effects: gravity manipulation, localized time distortion, neural disruption. The dance is how you move between the pulses without frying your own nervous system. And the AI? She asked. Is it part of the gauntlet? Unfortunately, Jax muttered. I am an integrated quantum intelligence designed to regulate power flow and prevent catastrophic user error. The AI stated primly. A necessity, given the user's tendency toward reckless application of level 4 pulses in unsuitable environments. It's also insufferably smug, Jax added. Lyra's laugh echoed softly in the shaft. It sounds like you two have history. 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days of suboptimal partnership. The AI supplied. We're still working out the kinks in our relationship, Jax said dryly. They reached the surface, emerging into blinding sunlight. They were on the outskirts of the amphitheater complex, the city of Dusk Reach sprawling before them, a chaotic mix of ancient architecture and haphazard modern additions. Hovercrafts buzzed between spired towers, while in the narrow streets below, market stalls and pedestrians created a colorful tapestry of activity. We need to get off-world, Jax said, scanning for immediate threats. The priests have connections with the Port Authority, but I know a few independent pilots who... Incoming aerial patrol, the AI interrupted. 3 security drones, conventional weapons, optical and thermal scanning. Jax grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her behind a massive fallen column. Can you run in those? He asked, nodding at her ceremonial sandals. In answer, Lyra kicked them off, her bare violet feet gripping the sandy ground. I can do better than run, she said, her silver eyes gleaming. I can hide us, but I need direct contact with your energy system. Jax hesitated only a moment before extending his gauntleted arm. Lyra placed her 4-fingered hand directly on the pulsing metal. Immediately, the gauntlet's glow intensified, and Jax felt a peculiar sensation, as if his entire body was being gently pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. Fascinating, the AI commented. She's bending light around our biological signatures. Indeed. When Jax looked down, he could see the ground through his own body. Not transparent exactly, but as if he and Lyra had become slightly out of phase with the world around them. It won't fool electronic sensors for long, Lyra warned, but it should get us to the rooftops undetected. Jax nodded, impressed despite himself. Lead the way. They dashed across the open ground to the nearest building, a squat structure with a rusted external staircase. Security drones buzzed overhead, their sensors sweeping the area in regular patterns. Thanks to Lyra's camouflage, they made it to the roof undetected. From there, they began a perilous journey across the rooftops of Dusk Reach. Jax moved with the confidence of someone who had traversed many urban battlegrounds, while Lyra displayed an unexpected athleticism, leaping gaps between buildings with graceful ease. "You don't move like royalty," Jax observed after she executed a particularly impressive vault over a ventilation unit. Lyra's smile was quick and sharp. "The Eighth House specializes in diplomatic envoys. We're trained in various survival skills, including urban evasion, useful when negotiations go poorly." "Often does that happen?" "More often than the official records suggest." They paused at the edge of a tall warehouse, surveying the spaceport spread out below them. Security had visibly increased. More guards, more drones, and energy barriers activated around all official docking bays. "They're taking this personally," Jax muttered. "You did ruin a ritual they've been preparing for months," Lyra pointed out. "My energy signature is particularly valuable due to my healing abilities." Jax's gauntlet suddenly pulsed, a pattern unlike its usual rhythm. Simultaneously, one of Lyra's bioluminescent markings, an intricate spiral on her forearm, glowed brighter. "Energy pattern synchronization detected," the AI announced. "Recommend immediate investigation of this phenomenon." "Later," Jax said, watching a security patrol pass below. "Right now, we need transport." He pointed to a small, battered craft, tucked between two larger cargo ships. "That's our ticket out. The Rusty Nail. Pilot owes me a favor." "For saving his life?" Lyra guessed. "For not taking it," Jax corrected. "Come on. We'll need to time this perfectly." They descended to street level, via a maintenance ladder, Lyra's camouflage ability flickering as her energy reserves depleted. The busy port marketplace provided some cover as they weaved between stalls and patrons. Hoods pulled low over their distinctive features. "Almost there," Jax murmured as they approached the smaller docking bays. "Just act casual." "Halt!" The command came from behind them, accompanied by the distinctive whine of energy weapons powering up. "By order of the High Priest, all travelers are to be screened." Jax and Lyra exchanged a glance. Without a word, they both broke into a sprint toward the Rusty Nail, zigzagging to avoid the energy blasts that immediately followed. "Pulse 4, shield wall," Jax called, his gauntlet expanding into a shimmering golden barrier that absorbed several direct hits. The effort sent pain shooting up his arm. This pulse was particularly draining, designed for momentary protection rather than sustained defense. They reached the ship's ramp just as more guards rounded the corner. The ramp was down, but the hatch remained sealed. "Vero!" Jax shouted, pounding on the metal. "Open up! Calling in that favor!" For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss of hydraulics, the hatch slid open. Jax pushed Lyra inside, backing in after her with his shield still raised. The interior was cramped and smelled of engine oil and something spicy. A grizzled man with mismatched cybernetic eyes regarded them with obvious displeasure from the pilot's seat. "Rourke," he growled. "Should have known trouble would wear your face." "Good to see you too, Vero. We need immediate liftoff." The pilot snorted. "Half the port security on your tail, and you want me to just blast off. Do I look suicidal?" An energy blast hit the ship's hull, causing the lights to flicker. "You'll look dead if we stay," Jax pointed out. "Besides, I seem to recall pulling you out of that Corvallian prison before they executed you. Consider this making us even." Varro cursed fluently in 3 languages, but his hands were already moving across the controls. "Strap in or splatter on the wall, your choice." The Rusty Nail, lifted with a roar that suggested at least one critical system, was functioning well above recommended parameters. G-forces pressed Jax and Lyra into the worn acceleration couches as the ship shot upward, breaking atmosphere in a burn that likely violated several local traffic ordinances. "They're scrambling interceptors," Lyra said, her silver eyes unfocused, as if seeing beyond the ship's hull. Varro shot her a suspicious look. "What's with the purple mind reader?" "Orion royalty," Jax explained tersely. "Political situation. Need to get her home." "Arya?" Varro laughed without humor. "Systems under blockade. Some kind of internal power struggle. No ships in or out for the past 3 standard months." Lyra leaned forward. "The blockade is maintained by forces loyal to the False Queen. If we can get a message to the Resistance—" "No." Varro shook his head emphatically. "I agreed to get you off Carvas, not commit suicide by planetary defense grid." A warning klaxon sounded. Varro swore again, hands flying across the controls. 2 pursuit craft, military grade. Must have really made someone angry. Rourke. Jax unbuckled his harness, moving to the co-pilot station. "Can we outrun them?" "In this bucket," Varro snorted. "Not a chance, but we might outsmart them." He yanked the controls, sending the ship into a steep dive toward Carvas III's largest moon, a mining outpost riddled with deep canyons and magnetic anomalies. What followed was a harrowing chase through narrow ravines and abandoned mining tunnels. Varro's piloting skills proving worth whatever Jax had done to earn his debt. Eventually, they lost their pursuers in a particularly dense magnetic storm, emerging on the far side of the moon with systems intact, but energy reserves dangerously low. "That's as far as I go," Varro announced, setting course for a nearby trading post. "You've got 6 hours before I report the ship stolen, and your descriptions to the guild." Jax nodded. "Fair enough." He turned to Lyra. "Looks like we need a new plan." "Perhaps not," she said thoughtfully. "The False Queen will be expecting us to seek help from the Resistance. But what if we appeared to surrender instead?" Jax raised an eyebrow. "Surrender to the person who sold you for parts? Seems counterproductive." "A tactical surrender," Lyra clarified. "If we approach under a flag of truce, claiming I've reconsidered my position, they'll bring us directly to the palace, where my family's pendant is kept." "And once inside?" Lyra's silver eyes gleamed. "That's where your particular talents come into play. Pulse dancer." Jax considered this, absently flexing his gauntleted hand. "High risk," he mused, "but potentially high reward." He glanced at his gauntlet. "What do you think?" "Probability of success, 11%. The AI responded promptly. "However, alternative options present even lower success rates, given current resource limitations." 11%, Jax grinned. "Almost twice our usual odds. I like it." "Your definition of favorable remains concerning," the AI noted. Varro watched this exchange with growing alarm. "You two planning a palace coup based on 11% odds, with an AI that sounds like it's one logic circuit, short of a full processor?" "Pretty much," Jax confirmed cheerfully. "Can you get us to the Aurelian sector?" The pilot groaned. "You know what? Don't tell me anymore. Plausible deniability when they're torturing me later." He adjusted their course with a few quick commands. "There's a smuggler's outpost on Terra Station. They might have a ship willing to run the Orion blockade, for the right price." "Price isn't an issue," Lyra said confidently. "The royal treasury will compensate anyone who aids in restoring the true monarchy." "Assuming we succeed," Jax pointed out. Lyra met his gaze steadily. "We will. My pendant and your gauntlet. They're connected somehow. I felt it in the arena, and again on the rooftops. Together, they're more powerful than either alone." Jax looked down at his gauntlet, which pulsed with a rhythm that somehow seemed eager. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I felt it too." 3 days later, a small, nondescript transport approached the Orion blockade. It broadcast official credentials, identifying it as a diplomatic vessel carrying a royal defector returning to swear fealty to Queen Amera. Aboard the ship, Jax adjusted the uncomfortable formal attire Lyra had insisted was necessary for their ruse. The high collar chafed his neck, and the ornate ceremonial gauntlet covering his real one weighed twice as much as it should have. "Remind me why I can't just wear my normal gear and sneak in through a service entrance," he grumbled. Lyra, resplendent in the traditional attire of Orion royalty, flowing garments of deepest blue that contrasted beautifully with her violet skin, gave him a patient look. "Because the palace sensors would detect your energy signature immediately. This way, we're expected, escorted, and given access to the inner sanctum with minimal suspicion." "Minimal is still more than none," Jax pointed out. "Which is why we have contingency plans A through F," she countered smoothly. Their stolen transport shuddered as a tractor beam locked on, guiding them through the blockade to a designated landing pad. Through the view screen, Jax got his first glimpse of Aurea, a world of breathtaking beauty. Crystal spires rose from lush forests, their faceted surfaces refracting sunlight into rainbow patterns. Floating islands drifted serenely between the towers, connected by bridges that seemed spun from light itself. "Home," Lyra said softly, a complex mixture of emotions in her voice. "It's not what I expected," Jax admitted. "What did you expect?" He shrugged. "More military presence for a world in the middle of a power struggle." "The conflict is largely internal and ideological," Lyra explained. "The false queen maintains the appearance of peace and prosperity, while secretly undermining the foundations of our society. Only those who look closely see the decay." As if to illustrate her point, their ship passed near one of the crystal towers. From a distance, it appeared perfect, but up close, Jax could see fractures spreading through the structure, hastily patched with materials that didn't quite match. They landed on a platform jutting from the central palace, a massive structure that resembled a giant crystal lotus. Armed guards in ceremonial armor surrounded their ship as soon as the engines powered down. "Ready?" Lyra asked, her expression betraying nothing of the anxiety she must feel. Jax nodded, adjusting the ceremonial gauntlet one last time. Beneath it, his true gauntlet hummed reassuringly against his skin. "Let's go meet this false queen of yours." They descended the ramp with practiced dignity, Lyra leading, head bowed in apparent submission, Jax 2 steps behind, playing the role of personal guard. The real guards formed up around them, their expressions hidden behind crystalline helmets. "Third daughter Lyra," announced a tall official, dressed in flowing robes of state. "Her Majesty awaits in the Throne of Echoes. You will surrender all weapons before proceeding." Jax tensed, but Lyra had prepared him for this. "My protector bears only the ceremonial gauntlet of his order," she stated. "As tradition dictates, it cannot be removed in the presence of royalty." The official frowned, but nodded reluctantly. "He will be scanned for concealed energy signatures." The subsequent scan made Jax's real gauntlet burn against his skin. But the ceremonial covering, lined with special materials Lyra had procured at great expense, masked its presence adequately. They were allowed to proceed, though with a larger escort than originally anticipated. They were led through corridors of astonishing beauty, floating gardens where exotic flora bloomed in midair, chambers where light itself seemed to coalesce into living sculptures, halls lined with artifacts that hummed with power older than human civilization. Yet, as Lyra had warned, signs of neglect were everywhere for those who knew where to look. Withered plants carefully hidden behind healthier specimens, sculptures missing pieces, artifacts whose power had dimmed. More concerning were the cameras, subtle but omnipresent, tracking their movement with an intensity that suggested more than routine security. Jax noted at least 3 different types of surveillance technology, some familiar, others uniquely Orion. "They're watching us more closely than usual," Lyra whispered when they paused in an antechamber. "Someone is suspicious." "Can't imagine why," Jax muttered. "We only waltzed in claiming you've had a complete change of heart after being sold for soup ingredients." Despite the tension, Lyra's lips quirked slightly. "When you put it that way, I can see how it might raise questions. Before they could continue, the massive doors to the throne room swung open silently. The chamber beyond was vast, its ceiling so high it disappeared into mist. The walls were living crystal that shifted colors subtly, currently pulsing with a deep purple that made Lyra's skin appear to glow. At the far end, atop a dais of ascending crystal steps, sat the Throne of Echoes, a masterpiece carved from a single, massive crystal, inlaid with metals unknown to most of the galaxy. And upon it sat Queen Amera. At first glance, she appeared to be an older, more regal version of Lyra. Violet skin, silver eyes, the same bioluminescent markings denoting royal bloodline. But as they approached, Jax noticed disturbing discrepancies. The Queen's movements were too fluid, almost reptilian. Her eyes, though silver like Lyra's, had a strange film over them. And her markings, instead of the steady glow of Lyra's, they pulsed erratically, sometimes seemingly against the rhythm of her breathing. "My wayward daughter returns," the Queen's voice echoed strangely, as if multiple voices spoke just slightly out of sync. "Have you finally accepted your sacred duty to the crown?" Lyra knelt, head bowed. "I have come to understand my obligations, Your Majesty. My resistance was misguided." The Queen's smile was wrong somehow, too wide, showing teeth that seemed sharper than they should be. "Indeed. And what changed your perspective so dramatically? When last we spoke, you accused me of betraying our bloodline and threatened to expose me to the High Council. I was captured by energy harvesters on Carvus III, Lyra explained, her voice steady despite the danger. They showed me the true value of our gifts. I now see that the sacrifices you've made are necessary for Oria's future." The Queen's gaze shifted to Jax. "And this one? An unusual choice of protector." Jax bowed stiffly. "Mercenary guard, Your Majesty, hired to ensure the princess's safe return after her educational experience." "A mercenary who intervened in a sacred ritual, who defeated 12 priest warriors with remarkable abilities." The Queen leaned forward, her film-covered eyes narrowing. "Remove your ceremonial gauntlet. I wish to see what lies beneath." Jax felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "With respect, Your Majesty, tradition forbids." "I am tradition," the Queen hissed, suddenly standing. The guards around the room stiffened, weapons raising. "Remove it, or I will have it cut from your arm." Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, please. He saved my life. Without him, I would not have understood the importance of our family's work." The Queen paused, studying her daughter with those unsettling eyes. "You've changed, daughter. Your energy signature is different." "The harvesting ritual began before my rescue," Lyra explained smoothly. "It altered my biorhythms." For a tense moment, the Queen said nothing, merely staring at Lyra as if trying to see through her. Then, abruptly, she laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. "Very well," she said, returning to her throne. "We shall proceed with the ritual of reconciliation. You will pledge your loyalty before the court, and then—" her smile widened unnaturally. "We shall discuss your future contributions to Oria's greatness." Lyra bowed again. "As you wish, Mother. But first, might I reclaim my pendant, as symbol of my restored status?" The Queen's expression flickered. "The royal artifacts remain in the vault until loyalty is proven." "Of course," Lyra conceded. "Then, let us proceed with the ritual." The court assembled with unsettling efficiency, nobles and officials filing in silently, their expressions oddly blank. Jax positioned himself behind Lyra, as protocol demanded, scanning the room for threats and escape routes. What he saw disturbed him. Many of the courtiers moved with the same unnatural fluidity as the Queen, their eyes bearing the same filmy quality. Multiple biosignatures registering as compromised. The AI whispered through the gauntlet. Parasitic overlay detected in approximately 68% of assembled individuals. Meaning, Jax subvocalized, they're being controlled by something, not their original consciousness. As the ceremony began, Jax watched the Queen closely. There was something familiar about the way her energy signature pulsed, reminding him of the priest on Carvas 3, but magnified hundredfold. Lyra stepped forward to begin the ritual, kneeling before a crystalline basin filled with silvery liquid. The Queen approached, drawing a ceremonial dagger that glowed with the same blue energy as the cauldron that had nearly claimed Lyra's life. With this blade, forged from the essence of our ancestors, the Queen intoned, I test the purity of your intent. The ritual required a symbolic blood offering, a drop from the Queen, a drop from Lyra, mingling in the basin to confirm their shared bloodline. But as the Queen raised the dagger to her own palm, Jax saw the blue energy surge unnaturally. It's a trap, his AI warned. The dagger will drain her completely upon contact. Jax moved without thinking, the ceremonial covering falling away as his true gauntlet activated. Pulse dance! Initiate, he commanded. The world slowed dramatically as the gauntlet channeled pure energy into his nervous system. He reached Lyra in what seemed like a single heartbeat, pulling her back from the basin just as the Queen's dagger plunged toward her exposed hand. Treason! The Queen shrieked, her voice distorting into something inhuman. The glamour around her flickered, momentarily revealing a grotesque form beneath the beautiful exterior, something ancient and parasitic, with too many limbs and eyes that burned with blue fire. That, Jax said grimly, positioning himself between Lyra and the Queen, is definitely not your mother. The court erupted into chaos. Guards rushed forward, but many moved with the same uncoordinated jerking as puppets with tangled strings. Those still uninfected stared in horror as their queen's form continued to flicker between regal monarch and monstrous parasite. The vault, Lyra said urgently. We need to reach the royal vault. My pendant. It can help us fight this thing. Jax nodded, his gauntlet glowing brighter as he prepared for battle. Which way? Through the rose chamber, behind the throne. The false queen let out a scream of rage that shattered the crystal columns nearest to her. Stop them! The girl must not reach the artifacts. Guards converged from all directions. Jax's gauntlet pulsed as he shifted into the combat flow, known as the pulse dance, a state where instinct and training merged with the gauntlet's quantum enhancements. Pulse 1. Gravity shift, he called, touching the floor with his fingertips. A wave of golden energy spread outward in a perfect circle, inverting the gravitational field for anyone except him and Lyra. Guards and infected courtiers suddenly found themselves floating helplessly toward the ceiling. This way, Lyra called, already running toward a concealed door behind the throne. Jax followed, using well-placed Pulse 2 bursts to freeze pursuers in time stutter bubbles when necessary. They burst into the rose chamber, a breathtaking space where crystal formations had been grown into the shapes of impossible flowers, each petal thin enough to be translucent. Under other circumstances, Jax would have paused to admire the craftsmanship. The vault entrance is hidden in the central bloom, Lyra explained, moving toward a massive crystal rose that dominated the center of the chamber. Only royal blood can open it. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The false queen's screeching commands echoed through the palace, her rage palpable even at a distance. Lyra placed her hand on the central petal of the giant rose. It glowed in response, recognizing her bloodline, and the entire formation began to reconfigure, petals folding, stem extending, until a spiral staircase was revealed leading downward. Go, Jax urged, positioning himself at the entrance. I'll hold them here. Lyra hesitated. We should stay together. Your pendant is our priority. Besides, he grinned, his gauntlet pulsing with built-up energy. Holding off angry mobs is kind of my specialty. Reluctantly, Lyra descended the stairs while Jax turned to face the approaching guards. The first wave burst through the door, a mix of infected and uninfected personnel, some moving with unnatural speed, others clearly confused and simply following orders. Jax didn't want to harm the innocent ones. He adjusted his gauntlet settings, focusing on non-lethal pulses. Pulse 4, shield wall, he called, creating a barrier of golden energy that blocked the doorway. It wouldn't hold for long, but it bought precious seconds. Pulse 2, time stutter, he added, targeting the fastest approaching guards, freezing them in mid-motion. The uninfected guards hesitated, clearly uncertain about attacking someone with such abilities. Jax used their hesitation to his advantage. "Your queen is possessed," he called to them. "Look at her eyes, the film covering them. Look at how she moves. That's not your ruler anymore." Some of the guards exchanged troubled glances. One, an older woman with captain's insignia, stepped forward cautiously. "The court has seemed wrong. For months now," she admitted. "Orders that make no sense. People disappearing. But what would you have us do? She still wears the crown." "Help us restore the true queen," Jax urged. "Princess Lyra believes the real Queen Amara is still alive, imprisoned somewhere in the palace." The captain's expression hardened with sudden resolve. "The stasis chambers. In the East Wing. There have been guards posted there day and night since the Queen's change." A roar of rage interrupted them as the false queen herself appeared in the doorway, her form now barely maintaining its humanoid appearance. Blue energy crackled around her, melting the crystal flowers nearest to her. "The girl seeks the quantum key," she hissed, her voice a cacophony of discordant tones. "My brethren harvested 17 royal bloodlines across 3 systems to find it. We will not be denied." Jax strengthened his shield, though the effort sent pain shooting through his arm. "Captain," he said to the guard who had spoken, "if you're with us, now would be a good time to prove it." The captain nodded sharply, turning to her fellows. "Secure the East Wing. Free whatever prisoners are being held in stasis." To Jax's relief, a significant number of guards followed her command, breaking away from the confrontation. The false queen screeched in fury, flinging herself against Jax's shield with such force that cracks appeared in the golden energy. "You cannot stop what has already begun. We have waited millennia for the keys to awaken." "Yeah, well, I've waited all day for a decent meal. So I guess we're both disappointed," Jax retorted, channeling more power into his shield. The gauntlet was growing uncomfortably hot against his skin, a warning that he was approaching dangerous power levels. Below, he heard Lyra call his name. "Jax, I found it!" "Little busy up here," he shouted back, gritting his teeth as the false queen slammed against his shield again, the cracks widening. "The shield cannot sustain another direct impact," the AI warned. "Power reserves at critical levels." Jax knew he had one chance. As the false queen reared back for another attack, he dropped the shield and instead channeled every remaining ounce of power into his final move. "Pulse 3, flesh burn," he cried, lunging forward to press his gauntlet directly against the creature's chest. Golden energy erupted from his hand, searing through the false appearance to attack the parasitic entity beneath. The queen, or what wore her form, shrieked in agony as the connection between parasite and host was systematically severed. Blue energy fought against gold, creating a violently beautiful light show that blinded everyone in the chamber. Jax felt his consciousness beginning to fade as the gauntlet drew energy from his own life force to sustain the attack. His vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges, just as he thought he might lose himself entirely. A new energy signature joined the battle, pure silver light erupting from below as Lyra raced up the stairs, her family pendant glowing brilliantly in her hand. "Jax," she called, "join with me!" With his last strength, Jax reached toward her. Their hands met, gauntlet touching pendant, and the world exploded into light. When Jax regained consciousness, he found himself lying on a bed of crystal petals, the shattered remains of the false queen scattered around the chamber. Lyra knelt beside him, her pendant now worn around her neck, glowing with a steady silver light that matched the rhythm of his gauntlet's pulses. "Did we win?" he asked groggily. Lyra's smile was radiant. "See for yourself." She helped him sit up, and he saw that the chamber was filled with Orion guards and nobles, all clear-eyed, the parasitic influence gone. And at the center of the gathering stood an older woman who could only be the true Queen Amera, looking weakened, but very much alive. "The captain found her in stasis. As you suggested," Lyra explained. "When our artifacts connected, they generated a purification wave that destroyed the parasite and freed everyone under its influence." Jax flexed his gauntleted hand experimentally. The metal felt different somehow, more responsive, more alive. "What exactly are these artifacts? The parasite called yours a quantum key." "An accurate if simplified description," Queen Amera said, approaching them with regal grace despite her ordeal. "The royal pendants of Aurea and the combat gauntlets of the Pulse Dancers were created as a matched set centuries ago, keys to unlock something far greater than either of us yet understands." Jax raised an eyebrow. "That sounds suspiciously like the beginning of another adventure." "Indeed," the Queen agreed. "The parasite entity was merely a scout for something far larger, an ancient intelligence that has sought the keys for millennia. By activating them together, you have sent a signal across the star lanes. Others will come searching, both allies and enemies." Lyra touched her pendant thoughtfully. "Then we should prepare." In the days that followed, Aurea began to heal. The true queen was restored to her throne, the parasitic influence purged from the court. Those who had been complicit in selling royal family members to energy harvesters were brought to justice, while those who had been controlled were offered healing and rehabilitation. Jax found himself an honored guest in the palace, his gauntlet the subject of much scholarly interest. Orion scientists confirmed what he and Lyra had already suspected. Their artifacts were quantum entangled, designed to work in tandem. When separated, each provided significant power to its bearer, but together, they could achieve effects previously thought impossible. 1 week after the confrontation in the Rose Chamber, Jax found himself standing with Lyra on the highest spire of the Crystal Palace. The evening sky blazed with the light of 3 moons, painting the landscape below in shades of silver and blue. "So," Lyra said, leaning against the crystalline railing, "what will you do now, Pulse Dancer? Return to your wandering ways?" Jax looked down at his gauntlet, which pulsed in harmony with her pendant. "Something tells me our artifacts have other ideas." "They do seem to have an agenda of their own," she agreed with a small smile. "My mother's archivists have been translating ancient texts about the keys. Apparently, there are 5 in total, scattered across the galaxy. Together, they're said to open a doorway to something. The translations are unclear." "Sounds ominous. Or promising, depending on your perspective." Jax turned to study her, this violet-skinned royal who had shown such courage and resourcefulness. In the short time he'd known her, she'd impressed him more than most people he'd met in years of soldiering and wandering. "I made an oath," he said quietly, "in the throne room, when I thought we might not survive. A blood oath to protect you." Lyra's silver eyes widened slightly. "Those are binding, in some cultures." "In mine, definitely." He flexed his gauntlet, which glowed in response. "Besides, these artifacts seem determined to keep us together, and I've learned not to argue with ancient, powerful technology. It rarely ends well." A smile bloomed across Lyra's face. "Then, perhaps we should begin planning our next adventure. Jax Rourke. The galaxy is vast, and somewhere out there, 3 more keys are waiting to be found. Below them, the crystal city of Aurea sparkled in the moonlight, its beauty restored, but forever changed by what had transpired. And far above, in the vast depths of space, something ancient stirred, awakened by the resonance of 2 quantum keys, reunited after centuries apart. Jax's gauntlet pulsed, a sequence that his AI translated as anticipation. Whatever waited beyond the stars, they would face it together, the Pulse Dancer and the Violet Healer, bound by artifacts older than memory and a shared destiny only beginning to unfold. "Lead the way, Your Highness," Jax said with a grin. "I've always wanted to see what lies beyond the star lanes."